Good morning. Happy Thursday. It's Thursday, right? Yeah, happy Thursday. So I'm flipping through. Told you that Tony Robbins, buddy of mine, passed away on Monday. So they're putting up a lot of memorials with regards to him, and so there's a lot of reels because he was in a lot of these reels. It seemed like he always ended up being a guy that got called on. And Tony Robbins pops on and says the following: emotion equals meaning, meaning equals life. One of the things I've learned from watching him for all of these years is he condenses. Over time, he takes something that's really complicated and keeps breaking it down and breaking it down and breaking it down and making it simpler and simpler and simpler. And he's incredibly effective at this. The one thing I see is if you don't see the process as to how that happened, I think sometimes that can be difficult to totally, you'll hear something and go, okay, well, that makes sense, but I think if you know how you got there, at least for me, that makes it a lot more helpful. So emotion equals meaning, meaning equals life. Meaning equals emotion, emotion equals life. This is the first time I've ever heard him say that. What is that? How does that translate? That sounds great, but how does that translate? Nothing in the world has any meaning except the meaning that we give it. So that's the point of meaning equals emotion. You decide the meaning, and then from that, the corresponding emotion that responds to it. So, when there's a death, you can look at it as a tremendous loss, or you can look at it as an opportunity to celebrate somebody's life. When you have a setback, you can look at it as failure, or you can look at it as learning. You give the meaning. Then that meaning equals the corresponding emotion. So all this stuff that we talk about, morning questions and transformational vocabulary and state management, and all of these things is designed to improve that process so that when something happens, you give it a meaning that makes you go into a resourceful state as opposed to a non-resourceful state. And so those meanings equal the corresponding emotion. If when something happens, you're like, okay, how can I use this? Life is happening for me, not to me. Be better, not bitter. Okay, when that's the question that you ask, then that's the meaning that you're going to give to the situation. So the meaning is going to be something positive as opposed to something negative. Then it's going to result in a much better emotion. Emotion equals life. At the end of the day, what we want in life are certain feelings. We don't really want things. We don't really want money. You don't want the piece of papers with the presidents on them. What you want is what you think money will give you. You don't really want a relationship. What you think or what you want is what you think the relationship will give you. You don't really want, this certain job or this. It's what you think that will give you that you want. You want the feeling. Meaning equals feeling. Feeling equals life. So whatever meaning we give to an event is our choice. That creates a corresponding feeling. And at the end of the day, what we really want in our life are specific feelings. You don't want money. You want freedom. You don't want the relationship necessarily. You want security, or you want love, or you want somebody to take care of you, or you want that feeling of connectedness. Whatever that feeling is, that's what you're really looking for, is the feeling. And here's the trick. You can give yourself the feeling anytime you want, because who decides how we feel? We do. Have you ever said to yourself, someday I'm going to laugh at this, and then someday you did? Could you have made that someday now? The two spiritual leaders that I saw last Friday, when she met Pujaswami Ji, Sadhvi, when she met Pujaswami Ji, she had gone through a sexual trauma, a significant one. And he said, well, are you ever going to let that go? And she said, yes. And he said, okay, well, when? Are you going to let it go on your deathbed? Well, no, I'm going to do it before that, okay? 2 weeks before that. And he just kept going until he finally said, well, why don't you let it go now? Why not decide to free yourself from that now as opposed to waiting and hanging on to it. That decision about those feelings is always ours. It's our choice as to how we decide. Now, a lot of times we live in reaction where we just react because we're anchored or we're whatever, but a lot of that is also the state that we're in. If we're constantly in a state of overwhelm, if we're constantly in a state of uncertainty, if we're constantly in a state of stress, those are going to create different responses. Meaning equals emotion, emotion equals life. Another simple way to take a look at it and realize that at the end of the day, we decide what our response to events are, and those responses create certain feelings, and all we want at the end of our life is to have certain feelings. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. We're all in this together. Let's take care of each other.